back, y'all. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than typical. You know, we really don't ever get into much mechanical type stuff on the channel. However, that is part of stuff that you run into when you have a property or land or anything like that. You know, when you homestead or whatever, you really want to try to save money the best you can. And part of a big way of saving money is working on stuff yourself. What do you think the chances are we can actually get that thing running? It's been sitting there for how long now, Jacob?
Maybe 2 years.
Oh, it's been longer than that. This is actually the mower that started my mowing business way back, I don't know, 18 years ago or something like that. That's the mower I started mowing with. And it's actually still a good mower. It's just not needed. So I'm sure as long as it's been sitting, me and Jacob are probably going to have to clean the carburetor out and do all that good stuff to it. So instead of hiring somebody to fix something mechanical, you just need to learn the skills and do it yourself. So today, me and Jacob are going to attempt to get this old lawnmower running here. I can about bet you that the carburetor is going to be stopped up, and that is one of the #1 causes of a small engine not to run, especially if it's been sitting. So I'm hoping once we get into it here and dive into that, I can show y'all how to fix that, because it's an extremely simple fix. However, if you don't know, you don't know, and you just have to have a little bit of mechanic skills to get the thing off and do that. But we're going to go through and show you that today, and what we're going to do here today will apply to just about all small engines, small gasoline engines. There will be differences because this one has a Kawasaki engine on it. You know, there's going to be differences between your Kohlers, your Briggs and Strattons, and all those other small engines. However, the same general principles will apply to this engine versus everything else. So we're going to dive into it and see what we've got. I already know the hood is shot on this thing, but I mean, I'm not really concerned about the hood, but it is shot. As you can see here, we've got just a single cylinder 17 horsepower Kawasaki engine. There's our battery. So the first thing we're actually going to do is probably hook a battery charger to it or some jumper cables or something, just so we can get power, just to make sure everything powers up the way it's supposed to. And then the carburetor, which I'm about positive is going to be an issue on this thing, is mounted right here, right there. And we'll end up taking that off. We'll have to take that bowl off. But so this mower here, in a way, even though it looks like a big pile of junk to some people, it's kind of got some sentimental value to it. So now it's seen its better days. It's been worked hard, but we're just going to see if we can't get it running so Jacob can have something to play with. He's already got his other old Ford lawnmower, but you know, it's nice to just do projects like this with your kid and show them the mechanic skills and teach them how to fix stuff. So there's no better way to teach than to actually get in and do the work.
It's a John Deere battery.
Look at that. We got lights.
You got lights?
Yep.
Oh.
So, but nothing's happened.
It got the flat tire, Daddy.
Now we don't have nothing. There it goes. I wonder why it's not trying to start turn over.
How do you get that?
The PTO clutch disengages and engages. I can hear it. I wonder why it's not turning over. Well, we got another issue that I didn't really think about might come up, but apparently it's been sitting outside so long that either our wires got corroded or something. So we just got some life out of it here. The seat switch was the problem. We got to push down on that. Jacob, push that switch for me. So when you're sitting on the seat, for some reason it wasn't pushing down. But you can see we've got some life there now. So what we're going to have to do is you can hear it clicking. When you hear a starter clicking like that, and I can actually see the engine trying to turn, that pretty much tells me that this battery doesn't have enough juice to get this thing started. So even though I've got the battery charger hooked to it, I'm not getting enough juice out of that battery charger to make the engine spin over and everything to get it going. So what we're probably going to do is either go get a good battery to put in it, or go get us a good set of jumper cables and just jump it from maybe the tractor or something like that, just to see if we can get it turning over good. But like I said, anytime you hear that clicking on a starter, that means most likely you're not getting enough juice. It's the solenoid clicking in and out, clicking in and out. And when it's doing that, that means you're not getting enough power to keep that solenoid engaged. So let's hook something else to it here and just see. We'll just take and hook that tractor to it with the jumper cables and see if that gives us enough juice to turn it over at that then. So I'm gonna hook the battery charger up. I mean the jumper cables up to it. If we don't get enough juice from the tractor here, then we'll not have to do it. So let's make sure we get this going. If we don't get enough enough juice from the tractor, that most likely tells me I've got issues with my starter and something's wrong inside the starter. And that could very well be a problem on this thing because it's been sitting outside for so long and water got down in it and rusted some stuff up. But I can tell you that when we set this tractor over in the edge of the woods, the starter worked fine. So there it goes. Alright, bring over here, baby. Alright. So now you can see we're getting enough juice. That it's actually turning over now. So now that we've got the engine turning over, that was my biggest concern, was doing that. So now I want to make sure that I've got gas, and we'll check the gas going to the carburetor and all that stuff next. Probably not a lick of gas in here, and if it is in here, it's bad. Dry the bone. So we need to get some gas, fill a gas tank up, and we'll make sure we're getting gas to the engine and see what happens. So I had to make a trip to the store and get some gas. So I'm gonna fill the tank there up real quick and see what we can get this thing to do. So just because of the fact I'm not sure if this thing's gonna run or not, I'm not gonna fill it up. I'm just gonna make sure I get enough in it to make it run. All right, that should be plenty. Fortunately, that gas tank was dry, so that means we're not stuck with a bunch of dead gas in that tank that we need to drain out. Then I'm also going to go right down here to the fuel filter, and since I actually have several of these fuel filters here. I'm going to go ahead and replace that and just make sure we've got good clean gas coming out the gas line. Like I said, we're going to pull this fuel filter off. Now the unfortunate part is this mower doesn't have no cutoff in the gas line, so when I pull this fuel filter off, gas is going to start going everywhere. So I'm going to make sure I pull my sleeves back and see if I can. These old gas lines are hard and dry rotted, so I want to try to break loose both of them before I go to pull them off. Oh yeah, I think it's going to come out pretty easy. Well, that's interesting.
There ain't no gas.
There's no gas coming out. Huh. Okay then. That means we got a problem somewhere. Look back in this tank. Watch out.
That's gas in it.
I'm going to check this fuel line to see if it's blocked, and all I'm going to do is take my air tank and blow through it. If this end will work for that, I don't have a blow nozzle up here. Can't hear it back there. I can't tell if it's blowing anything through there or not. One thing I was thinking about is this mower's actually got a fuel pump on it. So gas may not gravity feed through this line. Yep, I hear it bubbling in the tank. So that line's not blocked. So we're good. That may be what the reason gas is not flowing through here is because, like I say, there's a fuel pump mounted right under there, and it don't work unless the engine itself is spinning. So I bet you it'll hopefully start sucking gas once we start turning the engine over. Now these little fuel filters like this are about $10 a dozen. They're pretty cheap. So I try to keep several on hand at all times just because I run so many small engines around here. We just keep several around.
That's the old one.
Yeah, it really don't even look that bad, but might as well put a new one on it. That way we know that it's good. Let's blow this off.
Didn't do much good.
Yeah, it did.
Do a
It
little
blowed
bit.
all that loose trash off.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're going to do before we even try to start it is pull the air filter off, the air filter cover off. Alright, that's about it. So, pull that off. Everything looks good up in there.
Doesn't look as bad as my lawnmower does. My lawnmower.
Well, the whole thing come off.
Was it not?
It's sealed in there.
Oh, well.
I mean, that outside layer is starting to deteriorate, but that's okay.
I didn't see that part.
It looks pretty good.
I saw that part.
So what we're going to do is take and pour just a little bit of gas right in the top part of that carburetor. All we want's a splash. I'm trying to be real easy here.
Nope.
Okay, so that's about all we want.
A little bit more than a splash.
I know. So that gas we just poured in the carburetor should be enough to at least make it fire, and we'll see if this engine has spark on it or not. Alright, so did you see how it just fired up and then it went right back dead? That's just because it run the gas that was in the carburetor we just poured in there out.
Smoke! Smell the smoke!
So it's pretty obvious that it didn't pull no gas up yet. And that's sort of my fear, is I'm about positive that carburetor's probably gummed up from as long as it's set. So we're probably going to have to pull the carburetor off before we can really get any kind of action out of this. All right. So what we've done right here, even though we haven't got it running, we did hear it fire up off of the gas. So that's told us one thing, is that the firing mechanism in this engine is working good. And most of the time, when you get fire on, when you have a small engine like this, firing is not your problem. It's always just about probably 75% of the time an issue with your carburetor. And it's basically because of the gas nowadays. This ethanol and everything else, that just gums these carburetors up, especially if they sit. So, we've been told two things. We've told that our firing system works on this lawnmower and that we're not getting gas. So, there's two reasons we may not be getting gas. Number one is the carburetor itself is stopped up. Number two is this fuel pump isn't working. So, I've got to determine whether this fuel pump is working or not. So, let me just explain something here. Because the carburetor is stopped up, if the carburetor is stopped up, that's not allowing the gas to make to flow through it. So, in turn, the actual fuel pump won't be sucking gas because it can't push nothing out of this line right here, so it can't pull any more from the tank. So, it's kind of like it's trapped. So what we're going to do, I think what we'll do first is go ahead and pull the carburetor off and just see what it looks like on the inside. It looks like we need to take those two bolts right there off, and we'll be able to remove that plate where the air filter mounts to. And it also looks like that's probably what holds the carburetor on too. So we'll pull those off. Y'all, I've actually been working on small engines just about all my life. I probably started when I was around Jacob's age. And it's just something that they're just so simple and so easy to work on that pretty much anybody can do it. But I think a lot of people are intimidated by them just because they know nothing about mechanical skills. And so that's one reason I wanted to kind of throw this in on this video, was to show people that it's not that hard. Okay, so that's out of our way, and that's nothing but the plate that the air filter mounts to. So it's kind of like your intake manifold. We're going to just set that over there, and let's take off this gas line here. So this line is what's coming from the fuel pump, which is under this plate right here, and feeding gas to the carburetor. And we'll take that clip, that little clamp, slide it up the hose, and then slide this off.
That gonna come off?
Yeah, it's just stiff. There we go. Well, let's turn this thing over and see if we start pumping gas out of that. I'm gonna have to crank the tractor. So I'm really starting to wonder if that fuel pump isn't bad, because when we actually parked this thing, we were having some issues with it running. Okay, so we're gonna have to pull those studs out to get this carburetor off. So that's the linkage for your choke. This right here is your choke, and what that does is, so when you're cranking a cold engine, that cuts the air off and makes it more or less flood, so that it'll start that cold engine up. And then that's why you can't leave one running with the choke on, because it just floods it out. So when it opens up, you're allowing air to go back into the engine. Alright, this one right here is going to be a little more difficult. So we're just going to screw these studs out of the engine so we can get this carburetor off. But I'm really thinking that the fuel pump is the problem. And if that's the case, we're not going to get this thing running today because I don't have a fuel pump. Oh! We might can do it without taking that stud out. So you can do it like this right here. This would have been a better option. Screw one on there, then screw another one on there against it. Now we just need to go get a 12mm wrench. So you have to get those two tight against each other. Let's see if this will work. Look at there. This would have been the proper way instead of sticking those vice grips on there and scarring up the stud. Yeah, that stud right there is tight.
Can I try it?
There we go. If it hadn't been so tight, I'd have let you took it out. So next, this linkage right here is your actual throttle linkage. And you want to try to take that apart without bending anything, because you don't want that linkage right there being bent. And that's what controls the speed of the engine. And we'll just leave it laying out of the way. Then this wire, this is what you call a fuel shutoff solenoid. And these are known to go bad as well. And what that actually does is when you turn the switch off on the mower, that shuts off all fuel to the engine, and in theory keeps it from backfiring when you cut the engine off. It's really not a necessary thing, but it's just something that's put on newer small engines, which this isn't new, but it's new enough to have it. So
is my 72 lawnmower new enough to have it?
No, yours don't have it.
Oh.
So that's what actually holds the bowl on, is that fuel shutoff solenoid. So we need to screw that out, and if this carburetor's got any trash in it, it will be in here, and we'll know real quick what kind of shape this carburetor's in when we get that off. Oh yeah, boy, that thing's all dirty. Can y'all see that on there?
I'm trying to get it to focus.
See all that gummy mess on there?
Mm-hmm.
This thing is supposed to move, but it's not. So what that does, that little needle is, when it doesn't have power to it, this needle is in the upward position, and that's cutting fuel flow off. You listening too, Jacob? Because you're learning here too. All right, that cuts fuel flow off. When you put power to this plug right here, it sucks that needle in. And it's kind of hard to tell if this one's working or not without putting power to it. It should, I think it should actually, I should be able to mash it in, but I can't. So it could be stuck. Tap on that just a little.
Well, it was backfiring when we were running it when we parked it. It was going boom, 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 pow, boom, 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 boom.
So be careful, unless you want to go buy a kit for this carburetor, to not tear up that seal when you pull all this off. And of course, this one's going to be stubborn. Let's see if we can't. It's already broke.
You're going to have to buy a kit for it now.
That's unfortunate. It broke.
It like disintegrated.
Yeah, this thing's, yeah.
Ooh.
Look at the trash that's in that carburetor, though.
Ooh. So well, that might be the reason.
That's part of the reason.
Phew, it does stink.
So, the carburetor will be situated on the engine, just like that right there. And this is your float, which allows, okay, so gas is coming in this hole right here. When that float is down, that little there's a needle valve right in there that's open and allows gas to go into the bowl. The bowl, this is the bowl. All right. When the gas fills up the bowl, it'll shut the gas off. So when that thing floats upward, it shuts the gas off. And that's why it's called a float. So most of the time, when you have a stopped up carburetor, the jet that picks up the gas and sucks it up into the carburetor and throws it into the engine is in this spot right here. And that's what we're going to want to take out right now. I don't know. Can y'all pick that up? Can you see what's up in there?
I know. Yeah.
All right. We're going to screw that out. Now, this ain't a necessity, but this is something to make a lot easier. And where we work on so many carburetors and stuff like that, having a screwdriver that is straight up and down on the edges like that makes this job a lot easier. Where a normal screwdriver, see how they normally flare out on the edge? And that just gives you a full width of a blade across there, and this narrow profile allows you to go down into here and get to that little jet. And all your jets, at least that I've ever seen, are flathead size jets, and that's, did it come loose?
And I don't think I have a screwdriver that's like that. Oh, mine curve out or curve in.
Most screwdriver sets don't come with a screwdriver like this. This is usually something you kind of have to buy. Oh my.
What a man.
Look at this jet. There's supposed to be a hole in that thing. And there's no hole. It is full of junk.
Yeah.
Ew.
Ugh.
So, we're just going to have to get all this cleaned up.
How we going to clean it?
This is exactly why I keep brake cleaner on hand all the time too.
Brake cleaner cleans that stuff?
Well, brake cleaner and carburetor cleaner are about the same thing.
There's a thing called carburetor cleaner too.
Yeah. Carburetor cleaner is more expensive and you get less of it.
That makes no sense.
My hammer's bigger than Daddy. Your hammer's bigger than mine. Stinks.
That cleaned up rather easy.
Can you put one of them hoses on a spray can?
No.
Like a spray tank can. I know that's what you're asking.
Okay.
And Daddy,
Watch out, Maggie, so it don't splash back on you.
what about you, Daddy?
Guess you don't care if it splashes back on him.
So basically all I'm trying to do is every nook and cranny I want to get cleaned out. I want to shoot it up in all your little holes here. Make sure I see gas coming out somewhere or another. So we have another jet right there. Let's see. That one's free. But like I said, usually when a carburetor's stopped up, it's that main jet right there that you have to clean out. So anything that would be in this bowl, you want to make sure you get that about as spotless as you can get it, because that, if you don't get it out, that could potentially end up in your engine, and you know that wouldn't be good. You'd end up with a stopped up carburetor again. Okay. So now we need to get this thing cleaned off.
Tyler, what do you mean? You already know you're done.
So I think we can check and see if this thing works or not. by just grounding it out. What I'm gonna do is, these are still hooked up to the tractor battery. The outside of it should act like my ground. I don't think it's working. I'm getting power, I just seen it spark, but it's not working. So for us to get this running, this piece is gonna have to be replaced. And I'm starting to think, I'm wondering if that fuel pump under there is not gonna have to be replaced too. So now I'm putting the jet back in the carburetor. We're gonna let that solenoid right there sit with some carburetor cleaner. I've got it sitting up so that the carburetor cleaner's down in there, and see if that cleans. Maybe that'll eat some of that old gas out of it and hopefully clean up the contacts that are in that thing, and it'll allow it to start working again. We will be back with y'all.
This is my music.
Well, for y'all will be like a second, will be a couple days for us, because I think we're going to have to find some parts. So we have another lawnmower down here that's actually got the same engine on it, but unfortunately it has a different carburetor. And I thought I was going to be able to rob parts off of that carburetor to put on this one. Well, for whatever reason, that engine has a different carburetor, even though it's the exact same engine. It has a different carburetor, so that's not going to work. We could swap out the carburetors, but I'd kind of just like to keep the one that's supposed to be on here. We'll catch up back with y'all when we got some more parts. So we're back now about a week later. I got all the parts we needed, I hope, to get this thing running. So let me show you what we've got here first. There's the new fuel shutoff solenoid. We've done checked it, and it works like it's supposed to. We got the little ring that goes around the bowl here, and then right here is our new fuel pump. So that and that both came off of Amazon for very cheap. And then this actually came, I had to go to the John Deere place to get this, but it was only $5. So I think this was like 15 bucks. That was actually 27 bucks. And had I known that before, once I got to looking after I ordered these two, the fuel pump and the fuel shutoff solenoid, there was actually a kit that came with a brand new carburetor. And of course, the brand new carburetor had a fuel shutoff solenoid and a brand new fuel pump for like 35 bucks. And had I known that before I ordered this other stuff, I might would have just went ahead and bought that. But, you know, this is what we have now. We're keeping the original carburetor, which is probably a better carburetor anyways, because it is a genuine Kawasaki carburetor. All right, enough talking. Let's get this thing back together and see if we can't get it to run today. Let's go ahead and put this back. So we made sure we got the new gasket, the old gasket out of there. It was so dry rotted, it was pretty stuck, but we got it out. Make sure it's the new one seats all the way around like it's supposed to. Put it back in there where I can't quite reach. There we go. No, it come back out over here. Come on now. Let's put this on before it decides to pop out. All right. So the fuel shutoff solenoid is what holds the bowl on. I'll get a wrench and tighten that up. Just enough to seat that gasket. All right, the carburetor's ready to put back on. So we are ready to stick the carburetor back on. So first we have to hook up the linkages.
Remember which one's the throttle and which one's the choke?
Oh yeah. All right, and then the choke. All right. Now it's your turn to work on this thing. Once you screw that stud right there in, you're just going to screw it just like you would a normal bolt.
This way?
Yep. And you're just going to keep screwing until it gets tight.
Geez, you tore it up a lot when you pulled it off with the ladder.
It goes in there quite a way, so it'll take you a minute to get it all the way in.
Uh-oh.
Just keep on going. So we need to get them snugged up with each other, and them being tight with each other will allow you to screw that in. So I went and grabbed us a ratchet wrench to make this a little bit easier. You know, we're still having the issue of this thing not sucking fuel from the tank to the carburetor. So our fuel pump is mounted right behind this little plate here. I've already got most of the screws out. I just have one more. And we're, honestly, I hope that this is bad because we do have the new one. But if this is not bad and like we put the new one on here and it still doesn't pump fuel, then for some reason or another, we have a restriction in the gas line from here to there. However, I don't believe that to be the case because if you can remember, we blew air through this line and I could hear it bubbling in the tank. So I don't think that's the case. But we've got to get all those little lines off of it. And then them little clips, these little clips are super simple to use. You just mash the tabs together and it loosens the clamp up, and then when you let go it tightens it back. That's actually typically most of the time what type of clamp is used on a gas line on something such as a lawnmower or any type of really small gas engine like this.
Like on a wood splitter?
A wood splitter or a tiller or anything. You know, so a lot of the principles that I'm showing you today will apply to just about any really small gas engine that's carbureted. Now, there is newer gas engines nowadays that are fuel injected, and you know, that they run nice, they run really good. The lawnmowers that I use in my business every day are fuel injected, and they are really nice. However, you know, they're not as simple to work on. They're not near as simple to work on. Matter of fact, I probably wouldn't even attempt to work on them myself right now because they have computers and everything else just like a car does. Whereas these old simple carbureted gas engines, you know, they may not be quite as efficient as something that's fuel injected, but they sure are simple to work on. I'm not 100% sure what that line right there does. I think that goes... Okay, that's a vacuum tube right there. That must be what makes the fuel pump work. So a vacuum pulls off of the engine and makes the fuel pump inside of here work to actually pump fuel to the carburetor. Those are the screws that hold the fuel pump together. Okay, so we got a washer there and a washer there. So yep, they look pretty close. So
That's what the screws are supposed to look like?
no, those are a different type of screw. Those are star head screws there.
Oh, I see.
A lot of newer stuff is going to star-headed screws. You don't see much Phillips and flathead stuff anymore. There you go.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
You got carried away. All right. Okay, that's tight. Let's go up here and do the other one.
Okay.
So that's the thing you run into sometimes with your cheaper aftermarket parts. Sometimes things just don't quite fit exactly the way they're supposed to. But usually they're not really that big of a deal to make them fit.
That pipe looks
However,
a little bit big to go on that little line.
that's loose. Yes, so we may end up having to put a regular clamp on that so it'll squeeze it down tighter. Yep, look. Drawing fuel in.
Yep.
Can you see that? How about that?
Getting fuel.
So that was the problem. Fuel pump was bad. We had a whole lot of fuel related issues.
Yeah.
But hopefully we've got them fixed now and we'll actually have this thing running real soon. Put that ground wire back on there. Look at that concentration in that face.
Now which way does it go? That way?
It's only going to go the right way.
That way?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
There you go. There. Oh, and look, we forgot a bracket. We need to, that's supposed to be mounted right there.
So we gotta take that off.
We'll get that real quick. All right. So at this point, it should run. Let's pour a little bit of gas in the carburetor just to prime it some.
But if you run the starter so much, you'll make the starter go bad.
Yep. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We're still not pumping gas through the carburetor, it seems.
What happens if you pour a lot in there? What happens if you pour a lot?
So you can hear, you just probably heard Jacob ask flies are going brum, brum, brum. It actually looks like we got a fuel leak in the fuel line right up here. But so that may clear up. For some reason or another, it's not quite supplying enough gas to the engine. So we'll run it a little while and see if it clears up. And if it don't, well then we may have to do some adjusting on the carburetor. But, I mean, we fixed it. This thing was not running. And it has not run for years. And we fixed it now. And, yep, so I think we've still got a little bit of a supply issue for the gas on the carburetor. But you get the gist of it. Of pretty much what we had to do to get this thing going. And that's just the main thing. When an engine sits, you're going to have some type of fuel related issue. And, you know, hopefully now with very little work, we can get this thing going and going good. And, you know, more or less, it's just going to be something now instead of something we actually use. It'll be something for Jacob to play with, but you know, at the same time, it's also something that he can constantly have to work on and stuff like that, and learn little things as he goes. And you know, if nothing else come of this right here, you at least learned a little bit of something, didn't you?
Well,
What'd you learn?
I learned how to get a carburetor fixed and how to put a new pump on. And that.
Well, you also learned a little bit how to troubleshoot something too and figure out what's wrong with it, didn't you?
Mhm.
That's right. See, we had to go through all those steps to figure out what was wrong with it.
But how is it turning over even though before we had to smash that?
I'm not sure. I don't think that switch works right. I think it's got some connection issues, so I don't think it's working quite like it's supposed to. But anyways, guys, like I said, I know this is a little off topic from stuff that we typically cover, but it's still, in my opinion, homestead related because, you know, if you're going to homestead and you're going to go all in my opinion, you need to learn how to work on your own stuff instead of depending on somebody else. Because isn't that what it's all about, is trying to depend on somebody else as little as possible? So, you know, that's just one more step to elimination there, is working on your own stuff, fixing your own things, fixing your own engines. And the best way to start with that is start with small engines because they are the simplest. And once you learn small engines, then you can graduate on up to bigger engines and start to learn stuff about those. And, you know, at least in my opinion anyways. That's kind of how I started out mechanicking on stuff, was on small gas engines just like this and weed eaters and stuff like that. So, you know, you just kind of learn the simple stuff first and just work your way up. Learn how to diagnose your problems, and when you diagnose them, learn how to fix them. But anyways, y'all, like I said, I think me and Jacob's going to fool with this thing just a little bit more here just to see if we can get it back running. But we're at the point now where we're pretty sure we've got it fixed. I think it's looking like there's a gas leak right there. And so I'm probably going to have to put a different style clamp on that just so it'll tighten up. But, you know, we got it. We got the main issues fixed here, and now we've just got to play with it and fine-tune everything to get it back the way it's going. But
I did learn a little bit of something when we were working on a 1010.
On the 1010.
Yeah, I learned how to work on a big carburetor.
That's right. Yeah, a big tractor, a gas tractor, is not much different than a carburetor here. It's just bigger.
Yeah.
But anyways, y'all, we appreciate you watching, and we will see y'all on the next one. Thank you.